like a Hellcat.
Hello and welcome back to the channel where once again it's time for another Sega Saturn review, and today we're going to take a look at yet another light gun game. Today it's the sequel to the very popular Virtua Cop. Of course, I'm talking about Virtua Cop 2, which saw a worldwide release on the Saturn in November of 1996 after originally being released in the arcades the previous year in 1995. So Virtua Cop 2 sees our two protagonists from the first game, Michael Rage Hardy and James Smarty Cools, joined by Detective Janet Marshall as they investigate some money laundering activities between the EVL Inc. and the Virtua City Bank after a large amount of money somehow disappears. They smell a rat and take it upon themselves to look into it and take down the criminal mastermind behind these activities. So once the main menu hits, you'll see you've got start game and options. There is no training mode this time around anywhere to be found. Heading into options, it's all of our standard light gun settings really. Difficulty, gun looseness, lives, continues, sound test, controller configuration, calibrating gun, all of the standard stuff. Over the page we've got a few more things we can change: sight on or off, automatic reloading, gun selections when you pause the game, and you can set the play display screen to be either Virtua Cop 1 or 2. You've also got your rankings. Heading on over to the page, you also have an option plus menu when you complete the game. So with your options tweaked and you beginning your game, you'll see you've got beginner, medium and expert modes to play through, very similar to the original Virtua Cop. Now with that all said and done, we need to get on to how this game looks, how it sounds, gameplay, content and lifespan, whether it's still worth playing today and if it can make our Sega Saturn top 10. So like always, we're going to start with visuals first, and if you cast your mind back a few weeks ago when I reviewed the original Virtua Cop, I said that was a fantastic looking Saturn game for 1995, and Virtua Cop 2 is a great looking game for 1996 as well. It doesn't really progress that much over the original, but there are some improvements. Character models look slightly better on this game, animations are better as well. It's still just as clear and crisp and as bright and appealing as the first game as well, and it runs fantastic as well. There's no issues in terms of slowdown or anything like that. We've got a little bit more variety though in Virtua Cop 2 because there's more locations to explore due to having multiple paths in the levels. You can also take part in car chases and gun down enemies on a train as well. So there's a little bit more variety in that regard. So overall in the visual department, much like the predecessor Virtua Cop 2 is a great looking game that runs and performs very well as well. So moving on to the sound effects and music next, and much like the original Virtua Cop 2 has got a great soundtrack to blast along to, a bunch of themes that are perfectly suited to high intensity arcade shooting action. They are by no means tunes that you're going to be humming when you turn the game off, but they fit the purpose that they're required to very well. In terms of sound effects, again, very strong here. All the explosions, gun noises, cries the enemies make when you take them down are really, really good. Voiceover work is quite good quality for the characters when they do have things to say, and the voiceover chap, it's very good. The only downside in the sound effect department is the voiceover work for the bosses, because they are quiet and they're quite muffled. They've got that low quality sound, and that really is the only negative thing to say about the sound effects within the game. So what I'll do is what I always do, play you a few tunes so you can decide how good you think the tracks are in Virtua Cop 2 yourself. So moving on to the gameplay next, and for all intent purposes it plays exactly the same as the first game in this series. You move through the stages, gunning down all the enemies until you get to a boss which you defeat the 3 standard stages, and you will go on to the final stage where you face off against the final boss. It really is that simple. Where it differs is the fact that you can make choices throughout the stages which determines which path you will take, which actually gives the game more replay value as well. In terms of weapon options, you start with your standard 6-shooter pistol, which can be upgraded to other guns such as the machine gun, the shotgun, the rifle, the magnum and the automatic. You can also collect extra health as well. In terms of quality of the gameplay, it is just as fun, just as exciting to play as the original game. In fact, I think it's probably a little bit more exciting, and that comes to the fact that there's a little bit more variation in the levels. Like you can see on the screen, we can go on the train as it travels along, gunning down people on there, and you've got the car chases earlier on in the game as well. So it is a little bit more exciting in all fairness. So overall in the gameplay department, it is a fantastic game still, one of the best playing light gun games of all time. So moving on to content and lifespan next, and this game will take around about 30 minutes to complete, which is very similar to the first Virtua Cop, but where this game slightly excels over that is the fact there's more content to see in the game, because you can make choices determining the path you take, which means you'll need to play through the game several times to see everything. This game's downfall is the fact that it doesn't have the training mode that the first game has, and that's quite disappointing because that had a 2-player option where you could compete against each other, and that's actually pretty good. So not having that here is actually slightly detrimental to the game's overall lifespan. Of course, it's still great in 2-player mode, playing through the main adventure without a doubt, but that does bring it down slightly. You've got mirror mode as well, so you can play everything flipped, but I feel overall in terms of lifespan, it's no better than the original Virtua Cop. So like always, that leaves us with our 2 final questions. Is Virtua Cop 2 still worth playing today, and does it make our PAL Saturn top 10? Now without a doubt, this game is still worth playing today simply because it's just so much fun, non-stop thrills from start to finish. 30 minutes of relentless blasting of enemies is a great way to spend half an hour, and it is thoroughly enjoyable. Now you don't have to play it on the Saturn, you can play it on the Dreamcast, and you can play it on the PS2, so you're not restricted in that regard. There's a little bit more leeway in terms of ways to play it. Does it make our PAL Saturn top 10? That is the big question. You can see the PAL top 10 going up the screen. And simply put, Virtua Cop doesn't have enough content and lifespan to rival those games. I've pretty much said the same thing for all the light gun games I've looked at. Whilst Virtua Cop, House of the Dead and Virtua Cop 2 are all fantastic playing games, and Virtua Cop and Virtua Cop 2 in my eyes are really, really good looking games too, they simply don't have the lifespan or the content to challenge those games in that list. Those games on the list have got far more replay value, or they take much longer to complete from start to finish. And simply put, Virtua Cop 2 can't quite compete with that. Now that doesn't take anything away from the game, because it is still thoroughly enjoyable and great fun to play, and definitely one of the best light gun games of all time. But like always, these are just my thoughts and my thoughts alone, and I'm always interested in other people's opinions on every single game that I review, and today it's no different. So let me know your thoughts on Virtua Cop 2. Is it better to play on the Dreamcast and the PS2? I've not played either of those versions, so let me know down below if it is. That is it for this week. Another review done and dusted on the Saturn. Like always, I'll be back in the near future with another video. Goodbye for now.